The rain hammered against the penthouse windows as I adjusted the blanket over Alpha Chung-hee's legs. 6 years. 6 long years I'd been coming to this sprawling residence perched high above Seoul, caring for the most feared man in the city, a man who now sat motionless in his wheelchair, his dark eyes following my every movement. "Your medication, sir," I said softly, holding out the small cup of pills and a glass of water. Those eyes, sharp, calculating, terrifying to most, met mine. For just a moment, something flickered in their depths before he took the medication without a word. That was our routine. I spoke when necessary. He responded with nods, occasional grunts, or that penetrating stare that made lesser men tremble. But I wasn't like the others. I was Soo Bin, 26 years old, an omega in a world that often dismissed my kind as weak. My black hair fell in tousled waves across my forehead, and I knew people noticed my pale skin and red lips, features that made me appear delicate, vulnerable even. But I'd learned early that survival required strength hidden beneath a gentle exterior. "The physical therapy session went well today," I continued, checking his vitals on the monitoring equipment. "Your muscle tone is maintaining despite the paralysis. That's good news." Chung-hee's jaw tightened, the only acknowledgement I'd receive. I remembered my first day vividly. The agency had warned me, 23 caretakers in 6 months. He sends them all away. Don't take it personally when he dismisses you too. But something had been different from the moment I entered his room. Where others saw a monster, a ruthless mafia boss whose empire controlled half of Seoul's underground, I saw a man trapped in a body that no longer obeyed him. "I'll prepare your dinner now," I said, moving toward the door. "Stay." The single word froze me mid-step. His voice was rough from disuse but commanding nonetheless. I turned back, my omega instincts warring with my professional composure. "Sir?" "Sit. Talk to me." It wasn't a request. But unlike the fear his commands inspired in others, I felt only curiosity. I settled into the chair beside his wheelchair, smoothing my uniform. "What would you like me to talk about?" "Anything. Your voice." He paused and I saw his throat work as he swallowed. "It's different from the others." Heat crept up my neck. "In 6 years we'd barely exchanged more than necessary pleasantries, and now this?" "I don't know what to say," I admitted honestly. "Then just sit." So I did. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It never had been. That was the secret, I realized. I'd never been afraid of the quiet moments with him, never felt the need to fill the air with nervous chatter like the others must have. The rain continued its assault on the windows, and in that moment, sitting beside Seoul's most dangerous alpha, I felt an inexplicable sense of peace. If only I'd known that peace was about to shatter. "Where the hell have you been?" The door to my cramped apartment slammed shut behind me as Jin-woo, my boyfriend of 2 years, stalked toward me. I could smell the alcohol on his breath, see the rage in his eyes. My omega senses screamed danger, but I stood my ground. "I told you, the traffic was terrible and Alpha Chung-hee needed extra care today. His fever spiked and I couldn't just leave." The slap came out of nowhere, snapping my head to the side. Pain exploded across my cheek and I stumbled backward, catching myself on the wall. "Liar." Jin-woo snarled, his alpha pheromones flooding the small space with aggression. "You've been sleeping with him, haven't you? That crippled mafia boss." "What? No. Jin-woo, he's paralyzed from the waist down." "I don't care if he's paralyzed." Another blow, this time to my shoulder, sent me crashing into the small table. Glass shattered, the vase I'd bought last month, and I felt a sharp sting as a shard cut into my palm. "You come home late every day, smelling like expensive cologne and lies." "That's his scent. I'm his caretaker, of course I smell like the penthouse." Tears streamed down my face as I tried to reason with him, tried to make him see sense through his jealous rage. But Jin-woo wasn't listening. He grabbed my hair, yanking my head back, his face inches from mine. "You're my omega. What? And you've been whoring yourself out to a criminal." "Please," I sobbed, my hands trembling as I tried to pry his fingers from my hair. "Please, Jin-woo, you're hurting me. I've never been unfaithful, I would never." He shoved me away with such force that I hit the floor hard, my injured hand screaming in protest. Through my tears, I watched him storm around the apartment, throwing my things, breaking what little I owned. When he finally left, slamming the door so hard the walls shook, I collapsed completely. My body ached, my face throbbed, and my heart felt shattered into as many pieces as the glass surrounding me. With shaking fingers, I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd memorized by heart, my best friend Minjun's number. He'd know what to do. He always did. The phone rang once, twice, and then a click. "Minjun," I choked out, my voice barely recognizable through my tears. "Something terrible happened. Jin-woo, he hit me. He accused me of sleeping with Alpha Chung-hee, and I tried to explain that it's impossible, that the Alpha is paralyzed and I'm just his caretaker, but he wouldn't listen. He was so angry and I'm scared, Minjun. I'm so scared. The words tumbled out in a rush, 40 minutes of raw confession. I told him everything, the accusations, the violence, my fear that Jinwoo would come back. I talked about how I'd given 2 years to someone who clearly never trusted me, never saw me as anything more than property to possess. I feel so stupid, I whispered into the phone. I should have seen the signs. The jealousy, the control. But I thought he loved me. I thought I meant something to him. And now I'm sitting here bleeding and I don't know what to do. I can't go back to him, Minjun. I can't. Even if it means I have to sleep in the street tonight. Silence greeted my confession. Minjun? Are you there? More silence then. Soo Bin. My blood turned to ice. That wasn't Minjun's voice. That was the deep, dangerous rumble that belonged to Alpha Chunghee. Sir? I stammered, horror washing over me. I thought I called. You called the phone on my nightstand. The one you left there during my afternoon medication. His voice was deadly calm, but underneath I heard something that made my Omega instincts quiver. You've been hurt. It's nothing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you with. What's your address, Soo Bin? Sir, really, I'll be fine. Your address. Now. Before we dive into this heartwarming, emotional, slow burn romance Omegaverse story, note, this is an original work of Milliflex channel. If seen in another channel that is not Milliflex, please report that channel for copyright and impersonation. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. The command in his voice left no room for argument. With trembling lips, I gave him my location and then the line went dead. What had I done? I barely had time to clean my face and attempt to stop the bleeding from my hand when the sound of multiple vehicles screeching to a halt outside my building made my heart stop. Through my window, I watched in disbelief as a convoy of black SUVs parked haphazardly across the street, men in expensive suits emerging like shadows. And then I saw him. Alpha Chunghee stepping out of the central vehicle, standing on his own 2 feet. Standing. The world tilted. 6 years. 6 years I'd cared for him, believing him paralyzed, helpless from the waist down. And now he stood there in the rain, tall and commanding, his dark coat billowing around him like something from a nightmare, or a dream. My apartment door burst open. I'd forgotten to lock it in my shock. Jinwoo stumbled in, clearly having worked up the courage to return, but he froze when he saw the men filing into my tiny living space. And then Chunghee entered. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His presence filled every corner, suffocating and absolute. His eyes, those eyes I'd gazed into so many times, locked onto my face, taking in the bruise blooming on my cheek, the cut on my lip, the blood on my hand. Something murderous flickered across his features. Who are you? Jinwoo demanded, puffing up his chest in a pathetic display of alpha dominance. Get out of my apartment. Your apartment? Chunghee's voice was soft, conversational even. He moved forward with the grace of a predator, each step deliberate. I was under the impression this belonged to Soo Bin. Soo Bin is mine. My Omega. And I don't know who you think you are. I'm the man whose property you damaged. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Chunghee's men closed in around Jinwoo, who suddenly seemed to realize exactly who he was facing. Property? Jinwoo's bravado crumbled. Look, I don't know what he told you, but he told me everything. Chunghee finally reached me, and I watched in stunned silence as he gently took my injured hand in his, examining the cut with careful attention. He told me how you accused him of infidelity, how you struck him, how you made him bleed. His thumb brushed over my knuckles so tender it made my chest ache. Did you know, Chunghee continued, his eyes never leaving my hand, that Soo Bin has spent 6 years caring for me with nothing but kindness and dedication? That he's seen me at my worst, my most vulnerable, and never once showed me anything but respect? And you had the privilege of his heart and you broke it. He finally looked at Jinwoo and the alpha actually whimpered. No one touches what belongs to me. He doesn't belong to you. Jinwoo shouted desperately. He's mine. He stopped being yours the moment you raised your hand to him. Chunghee released my hand and straightened to his full height. Take him. Wait. Jinwoo's scream echoed through the apartment as the men grabbed him. You can't do this. Soo Bin, tell them. Tell them you're mine. I couldn't speak. My voice had abandoned me somewhere between shock and disbelief. You won't be harmed, Chunghee said, his tone almost bored as they dragged Jinwoo toward the door. But you'll receive a very clear message about the consequences of touching Soo Bin again. And then you'll leave Seoul. Tonight. As the door closed behind them, silence fell. I stood in the wreckage of my life, staring at the man who had somehow become my savior and my greatest mystery in the span of an hour. "You're standing," I whispered, the words finally breaking free. Chung He turned back to me, and for the first time in 6 years I saw him smile. It was a small thing, barely a curve of his lips, but it transformed his entire face. "Yes, Subin. I'm standing." "How long?" 3 months. The betrayal I felt must have shown on my face because his expression softened. "Let me take you home," he said quietly. "Let me explain everything. You're hurt and you're in shock in this apartment." His eyes swept over the destruction. "This is no longer your home. I don't understand any of this." "I know. Come with me and I'll help you understand." He offered me his hand, the same hand I'd held during countless therapy sessions, the same hand I'd believed would never grip mine back with strength. I didn't know what possessed me to take it. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the fact that I had nowhere else to go. Or maybe, deep down, I'd been waiting 6 years for this moment without even knowing it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong and real, and he led me out into the rain. The penthouse looked different somehow as Chung He guided me inside, his hand never leaving the small of my back. Perhaps it was because I was seeing it through new eyes, not as a caretaker arriving for duty, but as something else entirely. Something I couldn't quite define yet. "Sit," he instructed, gesturing to the leather sofa I'd always avoided, preferring to remain professional and distant. But professional and distant had shattered the moment he'd stood from that wheelchair. I sat, wincing as my body reminded me of the beating I'd taken. Chung He disappeared into what I'd always assumed was a bathroom, returning with an extensive first aid kit. He knelt before me, actually knelt, and began tending to my wounds with surprising gentleness. "You're probably wondering why I lied to you," he said, carefully cleaning the cut on my hand. "The thought had crossed my mind," I replied, my voice sharper than intended. His lips quirked. "I deserved that." He applied antiseptic, his touch feather-light when I hissed at the sting. "The paralysis was real, Subin. The accident that confined me to that wheelchair nearly killed me. My enemies celebrated, thinking they'd finally found my weakness. But you recovered. 3 months ago, yes. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it inconvenient." I stared at him, bewildered. "Inconvenient? You regained the ability to walk and you found it inconvenient." He finished bandaging my hand and moved to examine my face, tilting my chin up with careful fingers. Our eyes met, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. "Because it meant I'd have to give up the one thing that had made those 6 years bearable," he said softly. "You." My heart stuttered. "Me? Do you remember the first day you came to work for me?" He reached for a cotton swab, dabbing at the cut on my lip with maddening gentleness. "You didn't flinch when you saw me. Didn't look at me with pity or fear. You simply introduced yourself, told me you'd be taking care of me, and asked if I preferred the curtains open or closed." I did remember. The agency had prepared me for a monster, but all I'd seen was a man in pain. "The others were terrified," he continued. "They stumbled over their words, avoided eye contact, rushed through their duties just to escape my presence. But you treated me like a person. You talked to me about the weather, about the books you were reading, about nothing and everything. You never once made me feel like less than I was." He set aside the cotton swab, his hands coming to rest on either side of my face, cradling it like something precious. "I started noticing everything about you, Subin. The way you hummed while you worked. How you always made sure my tea was exactly the right temperature. The gentleness in your hands during therapy sessions, even though you knew I couldn't feel much of it. How you'd stay late when I had nightmares, reading to me until I calmed down, never asking questions, never demanding explanations." Tears pricked at my eyes. "I was just doing my job." "No," he said firmly. "You were doing so much more than that. You were giving me kindness when the rest of the world had given me only fear and hatred. You were reminding me what it felt like to be human instead of a monster." His thumbs stroked across my cheekbones, wiping away the tears that had begun to fall. "I fell in love with you, Subin. Somewhere between the second month and the second year, I'm not even sure when. I just know that one day I woke up and the thought of you leaving, of my recovery meaning I'd lose you, was more terrifying than any bullet I'd ever taken. So you pretended," I whispered, the pieces falling into place. "You kept pretending to be paralyzed so I'd keep coming back." "Yes." No shame, no apology. Just honest admission. I told myself it was selfish, that I should let you go, let you live your life. But then I'd see you walk through that door every morning and I couldn't do it. I couldn't give you up. My mind reeled. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, had hidden his recovery for 3 months because he couldn't bear to lose me. Tonight, when I heard you crying, heard what that worthless alpha had done to you, His jaw clenched, and I saw the mafia boss emerge beneath the gentle facade. I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I couldn't keep pretending when you needed me. You came for me, I said, the reality of it finally sinking in. You revealed everything, risked your enemies finding out you'd recovered, just to come for me. I would burn the entire city down for you, Su Bin. His voice dropped to a rough whisper. I would kill anyone who hurt you. I would give up my empire, my power, everything, if it meant keeping you safe. The confession hung between us, heavy and intoxicating. My Omega instincts sang with recognition, with the deep, primal knowledge that this alpha, this terrifying, ruthless man, had just declared me his most precious thing. I'm not asking you to love me back, Chung He continued, his forehead coming to rest against mine. I know I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things, hurt countless people. My world is violence and blood and darkness. But Su Bin. His voice cracked just slightly. If you'll let me, I'll spend every day proving that you're the one good thing in my life. I'll protect you, cherish you, give you everything you could ever want. Chung He. His name felt foreign on my tongue, intimate in a way Sir had never been. You don't have to answer now, he said quickly, pulling back just enough to meet my eyes. I've already handled your ex-boyfriend. He won't bother you again, I promise. He's alive, just encouraged to relocate. This penthouse has plenty of rooms. You can stay here, safe, while you figure out what you want. No pressure, no expectations. Just stay. Let me take care of you for once. I should have been afraid. This man had just admitted to being in love with me, had revealed he'd been deceiving me for months, had dealt with Jin Woo in whatever terrifying way mafia bosses handled threats. I should have run. But as I sat there, his hands still cradling my face, his eyes searching mine with desperate hope, I realized something. I felt safer than I had in years. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange dreamlike haze. True to his word, Chung He gave me my own room, a massive suite with a view of Seoul that took my breath away every morning. He asked nothing of me except to heal, to rest, to let his staff pamper me in ways I'd never experienced. But healing physically was easier than healing emotionally. I found myself watching him constantly, this new version of Chung He who moved through the penthouse with lethal grace. He conducted his business from a sleek office, his voice cold and commanding as he spoke to his associates. I'd catch glimpses of the ruthless mafia boss everyone feared, the sharp orders, the terrifying calmness when dealing with threats, the absolute authority he wielded. Yet the moment he saw me, everything softened. Did you sleep well? He'd ask over breakfast, his eyes scanning my face as if checking for new injuries, new pain. Yes, thank you. The chef prepared those pastries you mentioned liking. And there's fresh fruit. I remembered you prefer strawberries. Small things. Thoughtful things. Things that made my heart flutter traitorously. He never pushed, never demanded. But he courted me with a patience that seemed impossible for a man of his reputation. Books appeared in my room, titles I'd mentioned loving in passing over the years. A piano was delivered when he remembered me humming classical pieces. He'd invite me to join him for dinner, and we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing, just like we used to when I thought he couldn't walk away. One evening, I found him on the balcony, the city lights spread out below like fallen stars. The rain had returned, it always seemed to rain in Seoul, and he stood at the railing, lost in thought. You don't have to hide out here, I said softly, joining him. It's your home. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, he replied, not looking at me. I know my presence can be overwhelming. You've never made me uncomfortable. The words came easier now, after days of him proving his sincerity. Even when you were supposedly paralyzed, even when people told me I should be terrified of you, I never was. Finally, he turned, and the vulnerability in his expression made my chest ache. Why? He asked simply. Because I saw you, I said, moving closer. Everyone else saw the mafia boss, the killer, the criminal. But I saw the way you'd watched the sunrise through your window, like you were grateful for another day. I saw how you'd listen to me ramble about my day without complaint, even when you probably had 1,000 more important things to think about. I saw your loneliness, Chung He. And I understood it because I was lonely too. His hand reached out, hesitating just before touching my face. May I? Such a simple question, but it meant everything. I nodded, and his palm cupped my cheek, warm and solid and real. I meant what I said that night, he murmured, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. I love you, Su Bin. Not because you cared for me when I was helpless, but because you saw past all the darkness to something worth loving. You made me want to be better, even though I know I'll never be good. You came for me when I needed you, I whispered, my own hand coming up to cover his. You protected me, kept me safe, asked for nothing in return. That's not the action of a bad man. I've killed people, Su Bin. Dozens. I've ordered deaths, destroyed lives, built my empire on blood and fear. I know. I did know, it was impossible not to know who and what he was. But you've also shown me more kindness in 2 weeks than Jinwoo did in 2 years. You've given me space to heal, freedom to choose, safety I've never known. So yes, you're dangerous. Yes, you're feared. But to me, I stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. To me, you're the man who listens when I talk about books, who remembers that I like strawberries, who holds me like I'm something precious instead of something owned. You are precious, he breathed, his forehead touching mine in that gesture that was becoming familiar, comforting. You're everything, Subin. Then kiss me, I said, surprising myself with my boldness. If I'm everything, if you love me like you say you do, kiss me. For a heartbeat, he hesitated, giving me one last chance to change my mind. Then his lips met mine, soft and careful and achingly gentle. It wasn't the demanding, possessive kiss I'd experienced with Jinwoo. This was different, reverent, questioning, like he was asking permission with every subtle movement. I answered by pressing closer, my hands fisting in his shirt, and felt him shudder against me. His arms came around my waist, strong and protective, and the kiss deepened. I tasted rain and something darker, something uniquely him, and felt myself falling. When we finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were molten with barely restrained desire. I need to know, he said roughly, his hands trembling slightly where they held me. Is this what you want? Not because you feel obligated, not because I helped you. It's what I want, I assured him, my heart racing. I've been falling in love with you too, Chunghee. Maybe I've been falling since the beginning and I just didn't recognize it. All I know is that when I'm with you I feel safe. I feel seen. I feel like I could be happy. His smile was brilliant, transforming his usually severe features into something beautiful. Then be happy with me, Subin. Be mine, not as property, not as possession, but as my partner. My omega. My everything. Yes, I whispered against his lips. Yes to all of it. He kissed me again, and this time there was joy in it, promise, hope. When he lifted me into his arms, so easy now that he could use his full strength, and carried me inside, I didn't protest. This was where I belonged. With him. He laid me on his massive bed with a gentleness that belied his strength, his eyes never leaving mine as he straightened to full height. The room was dimly lit, curtains open to the Seoul skyline, and I'd never felt more exposed or more certain of anything in my life. We can stop at any time, he said, even as his hands moved to undo his tie with deliberate slowness. Just say the word and... I don't want to stop, I interrupted, my voice surprisingly steady despite my racing heart. I want this. I want you. Something primal flashed in his eyes, the alpha responding to his omega's invitation, but he maintained that careful control. I need you to understand something first, Subin. Once we do this, once I have you completely, there's no going back for me. You'll be mine in every way that matters, and I'm a possessive man. I won't share. I won't let you go. The words should have frightened me. Instead, they sent heat pooling low in my belly. Good, I breathed. Because I don't want gentle and temporary. I want all of you, Chunghee. The mafia boss, the man, the alpha, all of it. He was on me in an instant, his mouth claiming mine with a hunger that stole my breath. This kiss was different from the tender exploration on the balcony. This was need and desire and 6 years of suppressed longing finally unleashed. His tongue swept into my mouth, tasting, claiming, and I moaned into the kiss, my fingers tangling in his dark hair. Beautiful, he murmured against my lips, his hands moving to the buttons of my shirt. I've imagined this so many times, but the reality is so much better. Each button released felt like a small surrender, until he was pushing the fabric off my shoulders and mapping the revealed skin with his lips. He kissed the curve of my neck, the hollow of my throat, the rise of my collarbone, every touch worship and possession combined. Chunghee, I gasped as his teeth grazed my pulse point, right where an alpha's mating bite would go. Please. Please what, Omega? His voice was rough, strained with the effort of maintaining control. Tell me what you need. Touch me, I begged shamelessly, arching into him. I need more. He obliged, his large hands skimming down my torso, learning every curve and plane. When he reached the waistband of my pants, he paused, looking up at me with dark, questioning eyes. Yes, I confirmed, lifting my hips to help him remove the last barriers between us. Soon we were both bare, and I felt suddenly shy under his intense gaze. He was magnificent, all lean muscle and coiled power, his length already hard and ready between us. Scars marked his skin, evidence of the violence that was part of his world, but I found them beautiful. Evidence that he'd survived, that he was here with me now. You're perfect, he said, and I heard the truth in his voice. Every inch of you, Subin. Perfect in mine. He lowered himself over me, his weight delicious and grounding, and I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively. The feel of his length pressing against my entrance made me shiver with anticipation and nervous energy. "I'll go slow," he promised, kissing me deeply as his hand moved between us, preparing me with careful, patient touches. "I'll make this good for you, Omega. I promise." And he did. He took his time, building pleasure with skilled fingers until I was writhing beneath him, begging for more. Only when I was ready, when my body was pliant and eager, did he finally position himself at my entrance. "Look at me," he commanded softly. "I want to see your eyes when I make you mine." Our gazes locked as he pushed inside, slowly, giving my body time to adjust to his considerable length. The stretch burned initially, but he kissed away my whimpers, his hands stroking soothing patterns on my skin. "Breathe, beautiful," he murmured. "That's it. You're doing so well. Taking me so perfectly." When he was fully seated inside me, we both stilled, overwhelmed by the intimacy of the connection. He was right, there was no going back from this. I could feel it in every cell of my body, the rightness of being joined with him, of being his. "Move," I whispered, rolling my hips experimentally. "Please, Chung-hee. I need." He began to thrust, slow and deep, each movement deliberate. His length filled me completely, hitting places inside that made stars burst behind my eyes. I clung to him, my nails raking down his back as pleasure built with each stroke. "Mine," he growled against my throat, his pace increasing. "Say it, Subin. Tell me you're mine." "Yours?" I gasped, lost to sensation. "I'm yours, Chung-hee. Always yours." The words seemed to unleash something in him. His thrusts became more powerful, more demanding, and I matched him movement for movement, our bodies finding a rhythm that felt ancient and new all at once. The wet sounds of our joining filled the room, along with my cries of pleasure and his guttural groans. "So tight," he panted, his hand wrapping around my own neglected length, stroking in time with his thrusts. "So perfect for me. Made for me, weren't you, Omega?" "Yes." I nearly sobbed, the dual stimulation pushing me toward a peak I'd never reached before. "Chung-hee, I'm going to." "Come for me," he commanded, his teeth grazing that sensitive spot on my neck. "Let me feel you fall apart around me." His hand tightened just right, his length hitting that perfect angle, and I shattered. Pleasure exploded through every nerve ending as I climaxed, my body clenching around him, his name a prayer on my lips. "Subin." He followed moments later, his length pulsing as he spilled inside me, claiming me in the most fundamental way. For a moment, I felt the base of his length swell, his alpha not beginning to form, but he pulled back, denying us both that final claiming. "Not yet," he panted against my sweat-dampened skin. "The knot, the bite, those come when you're ready. When you're sure." I was sure. I was completely, utterly sure. But I understood his hesitation, his need to give me time. So instead of arguing, I pulled him down for a deep, languid kiss, pouring all my certainty into the gesture. We lay tangled together afterward, his arms wrapped securely around me, our hearts gradually returning to normal rhythms. I'd never felt so cherished, so treasured, so utterly safe. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "And I love you," he replied, pressing a kiss to my temple. "More than I thought I could love anything. You've changed me, Subin. Made me want to be worthy of you." "You already are," I assured him sleepily, burrowing deeper into his embrace. "You already are." As I drifted off to sleep in the arms of Seoul's most dangerous man, I felt nothing but peace. The months that followed were the happiest of my life. Chung-hee was an attentive lover, a protective partner, and, to my constant amusement, an absolute attention seeker when it came to me. "Subin, come look at these contracts with me," he'd call from his office, even though I knew nothing about his business. "You just want me to sit in your lap while you work," I'd reply, but I always went, always settled into his arms while he conducted his dark empire's affairs with me pressed against his chest. "Is that a crime?" he'd murmur, nuzzling into my neck, making me shiver. His associates learned quickly that meetings could be interrupted if I needed anything. The first time I'd brought him tea during a tense negotiation, the visiting Yakuza boss had looked scandalized. But Chung-hee had simply accepted the cup with a soft, "Thank you, Omega," and a kiss to my knuckles that made his claim on me crystal clear. No one dared comment. He was possessive to the point of obsession, but I found I didn't mind. When we went out, rare occasions given his world, his hand was always at my back, his body positioned between me and any potential threats. He vetted everyone who came near me, glowered at anyone who looked at me too long, and had absolutely no shame about marking my skin with love bites where others could see. "People need to know you're taken," he'd say, admiring his handiwork on my throat. "The giant diamond ring you gave me isn't enough of a hint?" I'd tease, holding up my hand where an engagement band now sparkled. "Never enough," he'd growl, pulling me in for another possessive kiss. But for all his overbearing protectiveness, he gave me freedom too. He encouraged my love of reading, building me a personal library that rivaled some universities. He supported my desire to continue working, helping me find a position at a pediatric care facility where I could use my skills without the danger of his world touching those innocent children. As long as my men can keep you safe, he'd agreed when I'd brought it up. And as long as you come home to me every night. Always, I'd promised. I'll always come home to you. The nightmares came sometimes, memories of Jinwoo, of feeling helpless and broken. But Chung-hee was always there, holding me through the fear, whispering promises of safety, of revenge already exacted, of a future where nothing could hurt me. He can't touch you, he'd murmur into my hair. No one can. You're mine to protect now, Soo-bin. Mine to cherish. And I take very good care of what's mine. 6 months after that first night together, on a rainy evening that mirrored when he'd first walked into my old apartment, Chung-hee took me back to the balcony where we'd shared our first kiss. I have something to ask you, he said, his hands trembling slightly as they held mine, the only sign of nerves I'd ever seen from him. You already asked me to marry you, I pointed out with a smile. I said yes, remember? I remember every word you've ever said to me, he replied seriously. But this is different. Soo-bin. He took a deep breath, and I watched in fascination as Seoul's most dangerous man struggled for words. I want to bond with you. Truly bond. The knot, the bite, everything. I want you to be my mate in every way our biology allows. My heart stuttered. Bonding was permanent, irreversible. It would tie us together on a level beyond marriage, beyond love. A biological and spiritual connection that death alone could sever. I know it's forever, he continued quickly. I know it means you'll feel everything I feel, be tied to a dangerous man in a dangerous world. Something happened to me, you'd feel it. The bond could be used against both of us. But Soo-bin. His eyes met mine, blazing with intensity. I want forever with you. I want every tomorrow, every moment, every breath. Will you bond with me? Will you be my mate? Tears streamed down my face as I cupped his jaw, feeling the slight scratch of stubble, the warmth of skin I'd memorized through countless touches. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll bond with you. Today, tomorrow, forever, yes. His kiss was fierce and tender all at once, and when he lifted me into his arms and carried me to our bedroom, I knew this night would change everything. Chung-hee laid me on our bed with reverent care, but there was a new energy humming between us. Anticipation, destiny, the knowledge that after tonight, we would be bound in ways that transcended simple love. Are you certain? He asked one more time, even as his hands mapped paths across my skin that they'd traced countless times before. Once I bite you, once we bond. I'm certain, I interrupted, pulling him down for a deep kiss. I've never been more certain of anything. I want this, Chung-hee. I want you. Forever. Something in his eyes shifted, the alpha emerging fully, no longer held back by uncertainty or fear. Then I'll make this perfect for you, Omega. I'll make you mine in every way possible. He undressed me slowly, each revealed inch of skin receiving worship from his lips. By the time we were both bare, I was trembling with need, my body already preparing for what was to come. Beautiful, he breathed, settling between my spread legs. My beautiful Omega. Mine. Yours, I agreed, arching into his touch as his fingers prepared me with practiced care. Always yours. When he finally pushed inside, we both gasped at the familiar yet somehow different sensation. Tonight wasn't just about pleasure, it was about claiming, about binding our souls together through our bodies. He set a slow, deep rhythm, his length filling me completely with each thrust. Our eyes stayed locked, the intensity of the connection stealing my breath. I could feel his love, his devotion, his absolute commitment with every movement. I love you, he panted, his pace increasing. I love you so much, Soo-bin. My Omega. My mate. My everything. I love you too, I gasped, wrapping my legs tighter around his waist, taking him deeper. Chung-hee, please. I know, he groaned. I can feel it. You're close. Come for me, beautiful. Let me feel you. His hand found my length, stroking firmly, and the combination of sensations pushed me over the edge. I climaxed with his name on my lips, my body clenching around him, pulling him deeper. Soo-bin. He followed immediately, and this time he didn't pull back. I felt his knot begin to swell, locking us together, marking me as irrevocably his. The sensation was overwhelming, intimate beyond anything I'd imagined. And then his teeth found my neck, sinking into the traditional bonding spot, and the world exploded. Pleasure, yes, but also connection. Suddenly I could feel him, not just physically but emotionally. His love crashed over me like a wave, so intense and pure it brought tears to my eyes. His devotion, his joy, his absolute certainty that I was his perfect match. All of it flooded through our new bond. When his teeth released my skin, I was sobbing with the beauty of it, with the overwhelming rightness of being bonded to this man. I can feel you, I whispered in awe. I can feel your love. And I can feel yours, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. It's everything, Subin. You're everything. We stayed locked together as his knot gradually subsided, neither of us wanting to break the physical connection even as our emotional one pulsed between us. He licked the bonding bite gently, soothing it, and I shivered at the sensation. Mine, he murmured against the mark. My bonded Omega. My mate. Yours, I agreed sleepily, exhaustion and satisfaction pulling me toward rest. And you're mine too, Alpha. My mate. My Chung-hee. As I drifted off in his arms, our hearts beating in synchrony, our bond humming with contentment, I marveled at how far we'd come. From caretaker and patient to lovers to mates, the journey had been unexpected, sometimes painful but ultimately perfect. I'd found home in the most unlikely place, in the arms of a dangerous man who loved me with terrifying intensity. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it. Subin, did you hide my files again? I smiled at the exasperated call from Chung-hee's office, carefully setting down my book. I have no idea what you're talking about. I called back innocently. He appeared in the doorway of our library, arms crossed, trying to look intimidating. It might have worked on his associates, but I just laughed. You reorganized my entire office, didn't you? I cleaned it, I corrected, standing to meet him. There's a difference. You're a powerful mafia boss. You shouldn't have coffee rings on important documents. His stern expression melted into fondness as I approached, his arms automatically opening to receive me. You're lucky I love you, he grumbled, but his hands were gentle as they settled at my waist. I am lucky, I agreed seriously, rising on my toes to kiss him. So very lucky. The bond between us pulsed with mutual affection, and even after a year, the sensation still made me shiver with joy. How was work? He asked, leading me toward the balcony where we often spent our evenings. Good. Little Minacio finally smiled today, first time since the accident. His parents cried. I settled into his arms as we watched the sun set over Seoul. And you? Any dramatic takeovers or territory disputes I should know about? Nothing you need to worry about, he assured me, pressing a kiss to my bonding mark, a gesture that had become habit. Though I may have strongly encouraged the Lee family to relocate their operations away from your care facility. Chung-hee, I sighed, but I was smiling. You can't threaten every criminal organization in Seoul just because they're vaguely near where I work. Watch me, he replied seriously. You're precious to me, Subin. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. And he would. I knew that with absolute certainty through our bond. This overbearing, possessive, utterly devoted alpha would move heaven and earth to protect me. I know, I murmured, turning in his arms to face him properly. And I love you for it. I love you for everything. Even when I reorganize your books by color instead of author? He teased, and I gasped in mock outrage. You didn't. His laugh was rich and free, a sound I'd learned to treasure. No, but your reaction was worth the threat. I swatted at his chest playfully, and he caught my hands, bringing them to his lips for tender kisses. I love you, Subin, he said seriously. Thank you for seeing past the monster to the man underneath. Thank you for staying, for bonding with me, for making my life worth living. I love you too, I replied, my heart full to bursting. My alpha. My mate. My Chung-hee. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with Seoul spreading out below us, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. I'd started as a caretaker, trying to survive in a world that often dismissed Omegas like me as weak or worthless. But I'd found strength in caring for someone others feared. I'd found courage in loving someone dangerous. And I'd found my forever in the most unexpected place. The ruthless alpha mafia boss who terrified an entire city was, in the end, just a man who wanted to be loved. And the Omega caretaker who had nothing, no family, no prospects, no hope, had gained everything. Love, safety, home. And as Chung-hee pulled me closer, as our bonds sang with joy and contentment, I knew without a doubt that this was exactly where I was meant to be. Forever. The penthouse was quiet tonight, the usual hum of Chung-hee's business activities absent for once. He'd cleared his entire schedule, sent his associates away, and declared that tonight was ours alone. The gesture touched me deeply. I knew how rare it was for him to step away from his responsibilities. I found him in our bedroom, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. Even after a year of being bonded, the sight of him still took my breath away. His shirt was partially unbuttoned, his dark hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it, a habit when he was deep in thought. "You're staring," he said without turning, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Can you blame me?" I moved closer, wrapping my arms around him from behind, pressing my cheek against his broad back. Through our bond, I felt his immediate contentment, the way my presence soothed something restless in him. "My mate is beautiful." He turned in my embrace, his hands coming up to cup my face with that gentleness that always surprised people who only knew his ruthless reputation. "Not as beautiful as you, Omega?" I smiled, rising on my toes to brush my lips against his. The kiss started soft, exploratory even though we'd kissed thousands of times before. His hands slid down to my waist, holding me close but not controlling, letting me set the pace. "Chung-hee," I murmured against his mouth, feeling bold tonight, feeling cherished and safe and wanting. I want to try something different." His eyes darkened with interest, but his touch remained gentle. "What do you need, love?" I took a breath, gathering my courage. "I want to be in control tonight. I want to take care of you the way you always take care of me." Something vulnerable flashed across his features. Surprise, maybe, or uncertainty. This man who commanded an empire, who made grown alphas tremble with a look, suddenly seemed almost shy. "You want to lead?" he asked softly. "Yes," I confirmed, my hands moving to the buttons of his shirt. "Will you let me? Will you trust me the way I trust you?" His answer was to capture my lips in a deep, surrendering kiss. "Always," he breathed. "I trust you with everything, Subin. My life, my heart, my body, all of it is yours." The words sent warmth flooding through me through our bond. I finished unbuttoning his shirt, sliding it off his shoulders, revealing the scarred but beautiful body I'd come to know so intimately. My fingers traced old wounds, evidence of his dangerous life, and I felt him shiver under my touch. "Lie down," I instructed gently, and watched in fascination as Seoul's most feared mafia boss obeyed without hesitation, settling onto our bed and watching me with eyes full of trust and desire. I took my time undressing, letting him watch, enjoying the way his breathing quickened, the way his hands fisted in the sheets as if stopping himself from reaching for me. When I was finally bare, I crawled onto the bed, straddling his hips. "Beautiful," he murmured, his hands coming up to rest on my thighs, touching but not guiding, letting me maintain control. "My perfect Omega." "Your willing Omega," I corrected, leaning down to kiss him slowly, thoroughly. "Who loves you very much." I could feel his length hardening beneath me, pressing against my thigh, and the knowledge that I affected him this strongly filled me with confidence. I kissed along his jaw, down his throat, finding the spot that always made him gasp. His pulse jumped under my lips and I smiled against his skin. "Subin," he groaned as I continued my exploration, my mouth traveling down his chest, my hands mapping muscles and scars. "You're driving me crazy." "Good," I replied, looking up at him through my lashes. "Now you know how I feel every time you touch me." I took my time preparing myself, using the oil from our bedside table, watching his face as I stretched myself open. His eyes were glazed with desire, his jaw clenched with the effort of not taking over, of letting me control our pace. "You're so strong," I whispered, positioning myself above him. "So powerful. But right now you're mine to care for. Mine to love." "Always yours," he agreed roughly. "Everything I am is yours, Subin." I slowly lowered myself onto his length, taking him inch by inch, adjusting to the familiar stretch and fullness. We both moaned at the sensation and I felt his hands tighten on my thighs, not directing, just holding on. "Perfect," I breathed once he was fully seated inside me. "You feel perfect. You feel like heaven," he countered, his voice strained. "Like everything good in this world." I began to move, slow and deliberate, rising and falling in a rhythm that felt natural, instinctive. His length filled me completely with each downward motion, hitting places inside that made stars burst behind my eyes. But I controlled the pace, the depth, the angle, and the trust he showed in surrendering to me made my heart swell with love. "I love you," I gasped, bracing my hands on his chest as I rode him. "I love you so much, Chung-hee." "And I love you," he replied, his thumbs stroking circles on my skin. "My mate. My everything." Through our bond, I could feel his pleasure building, mirroring my own. The connection made everything more intense. I felt what he felt, and he felt what I felt, creating a feedback loop of sensation and emotion that was almost overwhelming. I increased my pace, chasing the pleasure building low in my belly. Chung-hee's hands moved to my hips, not controlling but supporting, helping me maintain the rhythm. His length drove deeper with each movement, and I could feel my body tightening, preparing for release. "Touch yourself," Chung-hee said, his voice rough with need. "Let me watch you fall apart, beautiful. Please." I wrapped my hand around my own neglected length, stroking in time with our movements. The additional sensation pushed me closer to the edge, and I could feel through our bond that Chung-hee was close too, holding back, waiting for me. Together, I panted. Come with me, Alpha. Anything, he groaned. Anything you want, Omega. A few more movements, a few more strokes, and I shattered, climaxing with his name on my lips. My body clenched around his length, pulling him deeper, and I felt him pulse inside me as he found his own release, filling me with warmth. I collapsed forward onto his chest, both of us breathing hard, our hearts racing in synchrony. His arms came around me immediately, holding me close, one hand stroking soothing patterns down my spine. That was incredible, he murmured into my hair. You're incredible, Subin. So are you, I replied, pressing a kiss over his heart. Thank you for trusting me. For letting me take care of you. I'll always trust you, he promised, and I felt the truth of it through our bond. You could ask anything of me and I'd give it gladly. We lay tangled together for a long time, neither wanting to break the connection. Through the windows, Seoul glittered like a sea of fallen stars, and in the safety of our bedroom, wrapped in each other's arms, nothing else mattered. What are you thinking? Chung-hee asked eventually, his fingers playing with strands of my hair. That I'm happy, I answered honestly. That I found home in the most unexpected place. That I'm grateful for every moment that led me to you. He shifted us slightly so he could look into my eyes, his expression tender. I'm the grateful one. You saved me, Subin. Not from the paralysis, from the loneliness. From becoming so consumed by darkness that I forgot what light looked like. You reminded me how to be human. Tears pricked my eyes at his words. We saved each other, I corrected. You gave me safety when I had none. You showed me what real love looks like. You made me believe I was worth cherishing. You are worth cherishing, he said fiercely. Worth everything and more. I kissed him softly, pouring all my love into the gesture. When we finally pulled apart, I settled back against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Stay with me, he whispered, though we both knew I would never leave. Forever, I promised. For all the tomorrows we have left. And as we drifted towards sleep, still connected, still wrapped in each other's warmth, I knew that promise was one I'd keep. Whatever challenges came, whatever dangers his world brought, we'd face them together. Because I was his Omega, his mate, his beloved. And he was my Alpha, my protector, my home. Forever.